first, I'm joined by John Caudwell, entrepreneur and philanthropist. Very good morning to you, John.
Good morning.
We've seen a lot, as I say, we've seen a lot happening this week. So to get your view as a very successful businessman on what you've made of what Rishi Sunak has announced.
Well, I have to say that I've been constantly somewhat disappointed in the government since inception because, right from the start of the pandemic situation, I called for Caudwell pandemic recovery, which was investing in the UK economy. And the major aspect of that was investing in a environmental technology centre that would be an enterprise zone that would drive environmental issues. And, of course, one of the biggest ones of that is renewable energy, and make Britain very, very prosperous in the years to come because we would become the effectively technology centre for all in the world, for all environmental friendly technology, which we could export all around the world. But it would also, of course, be environmentally friendly to the UK and the world immediately if that were ramped up. And we haven't done it. We haven't created the real jobs. All we've done is put a lot of furlough money into people's pockets at a time when there was then a destocking of product, and that has contributed massively to inflation. So I am disappointed that we're not doing some of the right things, but equally we've done a lot of things that are admirable and right. And
do you think the windfall tax is right, John?
Well, I called for a windfall tax on online businesses once again about 18 months ago because the online businesses were winning massively at the expense of normal businesses. And the simple fact there is I felt that because it was such a unique situation, the pandemic closing people in their homes and buying off the internet, that I felt a one-off tax was justifiable. But also, let me be clear, I don't want to ever do anything that stops inward investment into the UK and the UK being an attractive place to do business and to feel security and safety. And a windfall tax has got the potential to disturb inward investment and to put people off. So it's a very, very careful thing to do. But I would have done it by explaining to the companies, look, this is one-off. It's never going to happen again. You need to contribute to the disaster of the pandemic out of the extra funds that you've made and support those other businesses. And so we're going to take a bit more tax off you. We'll never do it again. And I would have given that pledge because you don't want to put people off coming to the UK.
You wrote back at the start of this year in January, you said, quotes, "Sort it out, Boris, or step aside and let someone else sort it out so that the Tories aren't wiped out at the next election."
Yes.
6 months on, to what extent do you think he has sorted it out?
Well, that's very difficult to say, but he's clearly put a lot right in Downing Street and appointed people that are going to keep Downing Street performing more within the regulations, because that was extremely disappointing. I think when you're a leader, you've got to lead from the front. You've got to show people an example. You can't suddenly be held to account for doing something wrong. But there's so many people out there that have lost relatives, and there's so many tragedies that they're bound to be utterly devastated about the Downing Street parties. But I think he is sorting things out. He does have charisma. He does have the ability to lead. He does have strong views. Look how well he supported Ukraine. And I think he has the possibility of recovering from this and the Tory party recovering. But it's a very, very sad set of circumstances at the end of the day.
I don't know whether you heard what David Davis, former cabinet minister, had to say about it, that in his view, the damage is now done, will only get worse. It will be a death by 1,000 cuts. And really, Boris Johnson's got until September. That is the last moment at which Tory MPs could go for it, back someone new and give them enough time to bed in before a general election. Do you get that sense, John? Do you think that the time is running out for him?
That's a very, very difficult question to answer, because Boris, like many politicians, like Clinton and lots of people before, has got an amazing ability to survive and perhaps even recover. The one thing that Boris has got is a likeable charisma that does win people over. But he does also have very strong views and driving a lot of things in the right direction. So, as critical as I might be of the government's performance in many ways, I do support Boris's stance on especially on Ukraine, because Ukraine needs all the support it can get. Now, that doesn't mean a new elected leader wouldn't be in that situation, but I just don't think we need that disruption at the moment, and especially with this huge cost of living crisis that we're facing, that is very, very damaging to lower paid individuals and the economy in general.
Yes, and I wonder, John, whether you see yourself as pretty nakedly political, that you would support the Conservative Party, whoever leads it, really, because that's where your politics lies, or if someone else were to come forward with policies you agreed with, managing the economy in the way that you'd like to, showing that strength of leadership, whether you would be backing them.
Well, on your analogy of naked politically, that's completely the opposite to what I am. I'm fully clothed political. In other words, I will not support any party just because they're Conservative or just because they're Labour. I'll only support a set of values and set of principles that I believe are best for the people of Britain.
Could you see yourself then? Could you see yourself donating or voting for Keir Starmer's Labour Party?
I doubt it, because I think it's too embedded with undesirable characteristics that would surface. And to be honest, I don't see Keir as a great leader anyway. You know, I think he's got a lot of weaknesses. And now I'd like a very strong Tory party.
Do you think he's trustworthy?
Oh, gosh. I mean, look, you know, it's very difficult to judge somebody's trustworthiness until you actually work with them and see specifically what
do you make of Johnson's trustworthiness, John?
I'm sorry?
What do you make of Boris Johnson's trustworthiness?
Well, I'll be able to answer you that in a short while, because Boris has promised to come to one of my charity events and be a VIP guest there and help us raise money for Caudwell children. And he hasn't done so up to yet because of the pandemic. But if he comes, then I'll think, well, at least he's honoured that promise, and hopefully honours everything else that he says he's going to do for the whole country.
But you don't think there's any evidence thus far, other than his attendance at the charity event, to raise a question mark about his trustworthiness?
Look, there's got to be question marks, but there's question marks about most politicians. If you ask me how many politicians I truly trust, we're down to some very small numbers. So I don't inherently trust politicians, you know, people who are hungry for power and get into that position. I have a certain amount of distrust of it. I judge on basically on what they do in the future and how well they run the country. All
right. John, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed for your time. John Caudwell, entrepreneur, philanthropist, who donated £500,000 to the Conservatives ahead of that 2019 general election.